my friends. My name is Liz Speakman, and welcome to the Liz Speaks podcast. I'm so happy you're here with us today. First, I want to say happy Pride. It's an exciting month for everybody. And I want to remind everyone that Quincy has our Pride event on June 27th from 12 to 4 at Pageant Field. And then after that is Porch Fest from 3 to 8. So June 27th is going to be a great day in Quincy. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about an early intervention center. I first heard about this on June 1st when I was at a city council meeting. Most of the public comment was about Eastern Nazarene College, but interspersed were parents who were providing comment about the Molly Hirschberg Center that their young children had been receiving services from and found them incredibly helpful, but that the center was moving to a location that was not going to be work as well for their families. And so I'm going to share a clip about from the parents so you can hear directly from them how this center has changed their lives.
3 years ago, my fiance and I packed up our belongings and our cats and moved from Indianapolis to Boston to further our careers. Within 6 months of being here, we found that we were expecting our daughter, quite the surprise. While we were nervous, as all of our families still reside in Indiana, we were excited to take on parenthood. We chose to move to Quincy not long after, as it seemed to be a great place to raise our child. After the first 3 months, our daughter was in the first percentile of weight, bordering on failure to thrive. Our pediatric team began talks of putting her on a feeding tube. Feeding our daughter was extremely difficult, from latching issues, not accepting bottles, and then discovering that she has a dairy allergy. It felt like no matter what we tried, we were failing our child. Once we finally figured out how to get calories into her, it was time to introduce solids, which opened up so many more feeding issues. Unfortunately, every time we would try to feed her a solid, she would gag to the point of projectile vomiting, essentially losing everything that we worked so hard to get her to ingest up until that point. We felt defeated, again, like we were failing our child in one of the most essential ways. If you can't eat, you can't survive. This is when Aspire's early intervention got involved and became our saving grace. After several months of working with one of my daughter's favorite people, her OT, Miss Amelia, she is now thriving. When we found out she was eligible for group therapy, we were even more elated. Not only would she be able to socialize with kids like Ambika on similar journeys, but we would be able to interact with other parents going through similar journeys with their children. We've been able to find a community and learn from parents experiencing similar developmental speed bumps with their kids while we watch our kids play and learn from each other at the same time. Group therapy has allowed my daughter to watch other kids feed themselves, and in turn has helped her try new foods and continue trending positively in her feeding journey. These services have been monumental and, in my opinion, life-saving for my daughter. The current site offers many accommodations and was renovated specifically to cater to the needs of our kids. The proposed site simply does not. These accommodations are essential for their care, and if the mayor truly wants to be a champion for our children, he will ensure that at bare minimum, the facilities are equivalent to what we are currently receiving for our kids and for those that follow.
The EI specialists, fellow parents, and children have created a warm and welcoming community at Group, which truly has helped my daughter not only survive, but thrive. The Molly Hirschberg Learning Center has 4 classrooms with 3 attached bathrooms specifically renovated for early intervention, a large indoor gym specifically renovated for early intervention, 2 outdoor playgrounds with real grass, evaluation and observation rooms, administrative rooms, and room to store donations so needy families can take free baby gear and clothing home. In contrast, the space at 54 Miller Street offered by the City of Quincy is a single room and has no indoor gym and no outdoor space. The Molly Hirschberg Learning Center offers group services for 90 children and capacity to expand to 200 children. In contrast, the Miller Street room only has capacity to serve 45 children. We want full services for all children all the time without being interrupted. That's what our children deserve. Please help us, Mayor Koch and the City of Quincy, to protect and care for our most vulnerable children.
After speaking at public comment, the parents reached out directly to the mayor and have not heard a response, even to this day, a few weeks later. So they reached out to me and they asked if I'd be willing to look into this situation and talk about it a little bit on my podcast. So I looked into it, and thankfully we have a really great reporter, Peter Blandino, who wrote an article in the Ledger that just came out this morning. And so there are some facts that we know. The city does own the building that this Molly Hirschberg Center is currently located in. And in 2022, the city of Quincy committed to the Massachusetts tribe to give the land back to that tribe, which is the land that that center is on. Aspire is the organization that runs the center. And so since 2022, the city of Quincy and Aspire have had many years in order to figure out a solution that works well both for the tribe and also for the families of these very vulnerable children. The families just found out the end of May that the center is going to be moving out of that space the end of June. And so with 30 days notice, the families are now in a rush to try to figure out how to make sure that their kids are receiving care in a way that works best for them. So the parents talked in the clips about the ways that this service has helped their children. But I just want to share, for me as a mom, when I was listening to their public comment at City Council, it was truly heartbreaking to hear that these newborn babies who are having trouble eating, swallowing, and that these parents are really worried about the ability of their child to actually survive, have found such transformative help and care through the Molly Hirschberg Center, and then to learn that those services are not going to be provided in the same way that they have been is truly heartbreaking. You know, when you have a newborn baby that is struggling to take in nourishment, I can't think of a more vulnerable population that we would want to protect and stand by. And unfortunately, the new center that the early intervention program would move into is in a medical building. It's a one-room space with a shared bathroom. And while I think it's amazing that we have a psychiatric crisis center where people can go and be evaluated and have overnight stays, that's the same location as where these young babies would be receiving care. And while I think that mental health treatment is really critical and important for us to have in Quincy, I don't think that it pairs well with young babies and young children who are needing that extra bit of care in order to survive. So my take, I think that there's real possibility here for the city and Aspire leadership to work together to come up with a solution that both serves the commitment, the really important commitment that the city has made to the Massachusetts tribe and honor that giving of land back to them, and also honor the requests from the families to continue providing not only for their children, but for the young ones that are coming behind them, that critical care that they need to be able to survive. And that we don't, as a community, pit these folks against each other. I believe there's a solution that can really meet the needs of everyone here. And thankfully, we're a city where we just saw the city owns around 80 properties across Quincy. And so I believe that we have the ability as a community to find a really beautiful space for these families and make sure that they're taken care of as best as possible. And that would really require the city extending the lease to Aspire so that there's a little bit more time for Aspire and the city to come together and come up with a solution. So our call to action today is to call the mayor's office, reach out to the mayor's office, and ask for them to meet with the parents. The parents are the ones that are most impacted by this decision, and after multiple calls and emails to the mayor's office, they haven't gotten a response. And so really asking folks here to give them a call and ask them to meet with the parents. I also think that Aspire leadership has some responsibility here, and so I encourage you to contact the Aspire leadership and ask them to find a solution, to work collectively with the city and with the parents to find a solution that's going to serve our children well. We'll provide some contact information in our bio, and also a link to the petition that the parents are putting together. So to shift gears a little bit, the next interview you're going to see is with Patrick Roath. He's running for Congress in the 8th District, and you'll hear more from him about why he's running and why he thinks you should vote for him. But first I wanted to show a clip that is done by David Hogg, who runs an organization called Leaders We Deserve. It's a political action committee where they're raising money to fund Democrats who are running in safe Democratic Congress seats. So they are safe seats, a Democrat's going to win, but they are providing support for more progressive Democrats to be in those seats. So this is an ad that features our current Congressman Stephen Lynch, and then a few words by David Hogg. So I'll let you check that out.
Get to decide that. I'm elected. I get to decide that. You want to decide that, you need to run for Congress.
Deal. Stephen Lynch, we are happy to announce that we are challenging you in your race for Congress. You were one of the most conservative Democrats in Congress in terms of your voting history. You voted against the Affordable Care Act. You also have a history of voting against gun violence prevention legislation in the state house when you were there. And on top of that, you've even gone so far as to protect and defend things like the gay panic defense. This is a rally that he did allegedly in support of VA workers and other people being affected by DOGE in 2025. Somebody obviously was hurting one of his constituents here that called him out and said, you need to do more. The correct response is not to say, fuck you, this is my position. The correct response is to say, I know you are in pain. I want to work with you to know what else I can do to serve you. That's why we are really excited to endorse Patrick Roath in his run against Stephen Lynch. He has done the work even before his run for Congress to show how he is serving his community, fighting for his community, and that is exactly what we need more of in Congress. We need a hell of a lot more Patrick and a lot less entitlement from people like Steve Lynch. And the only way that we're going to help get Democrats to clean up their act is in safe seats like this, ensuring that we have the best representation possible. Not a Democrat who's taken a bunch of money from corporations like Stephen Lynch, and instead having somebody like Patrick who's fought to protect asylum seekers, who's fought to protect voting rights, who's pledged not to take any corporate money, and do everything he can to fight back against Donald Trump.
I'm here with our guest, Patrick Roath, who is running for Congress in the 8th District. Welcome, Patrick.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so glad that you're here.
Very happy to be here.
So tell us, why are you running for Congress?
It's a time where we're facing threats that we've never seen before. There are threats to our basic way of doing business, of basic due process protections that have kept us safe for so long. And the thing that created the American dream story for so many people is really broken down. I want to be part of the solution to that. I think that confronting the challenge of Donald Trump and his presidency, I'm a Democrat, you might have noticed, you didn't mention, but confronting that challenge and the threat it poses to our country requires a different kind of leadership than what we've been seeing. Different than the kind of talking points and candidates and messages that might have made sense in our communities 10, 20, or 30 years ago. There's a time for a different style of leadership, a different vision for the country, and some different ideas about fixing things and getting us back on track. So that's big picture. Happy to go down to any of the different parts of that.
Yeah, so you say we need something different. What do we need that's different?
Yeah, well, look, I'll bring it down to super local, right? I mean, here in this congressional district, we've had the same member of Congress for 25 years, Congressman Stephen Lynch. And I'm not a bad guy at all, but I'm challenging him in the Democratic primary because I think we need a new approach to some of these problems, right? At bottom, what we need to do is rebuild confidence in our democracy. Mm-hmm. We need to show people that it can work again. And I don't go around meeting a lot of folks who think the Democratic Party as it exists today is really doing a great job of telling that story. Mm-hmm. We've gotten really good at saying what we're not. and saying we're not Donald Trump. We're going to fight back against that. But I want to hear more about what we're for. And this idea, like my parents experienced, that American dream story, and how we can promote that and make sure that people continue to live that. For me, that's addressing things like housing costs, right? Building more homes, childcare costs, very personal to me, healthcare costs, and it's fixing our system so that our elected members of Congress, our elected politicians, are actually responsive to the things in our community. That's taking corporate money out of elections, it's term limits, right? And it's getting some fresh voices in there and some new people to run in these seats.
Yeah. So tell us, actually, I think a lot of people may not know what the 8th District includes. Yeah. So you don't have to name every
how
city.
Much time you got?
But like generally, how are we looking at it on the map so people know if they're in the 8th District or not?
Yep, it's the districts are very funky, so it's not that easy to describe. It's got parts of Boston, it's got South Boston, parts of Dorchester, Jamaica Plain where I live, West Roxbury, Rosendale, downtown Boston, and then it's got a lot of the South Shore in the areas just west of Boston, right? So Quincy, all of Quincy's in the district, all the surrounding communities, Braintree, Weymouth, Hingham, and then if you go over to Stoughton, Canton, Brockton, right, as far down as Hingham and Hull on the coast, communities like Dedham, Westwood, and Walpole are all in the district. So it's kind of like a funky U around the Boston area.
Great. I think that'll be helpful for people who are wondering if this is relevant for them. So you mentioned that childcare costs is personal for you. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, sure. My wife and I've been, my roots on the South Shore through my mom. I've been in the Boston area now myself for about 20 years. My wife and I moved to Jamaica Plain 5 years ago, and this past December, in the midst of this congressional campaign, we had a kid, our first, our daughter, which has been an incredible experience, of course, but challenging, right? And challenging, of course, to run for Congress, but even just to have two parents who are working and trying to get by. So we just had our first full week of daycare. There was a hoof and mouth outbreak on day 2.
Hand, foot, and mouth.
Whatever it is, hand, foot, and mouth, is that what it's
Don't
called?
worry, you'll get it.
I'm sure, good Lord.
You'll get there.
I'm learning all about it. 3 to 6 days incubation period.
It's no joke.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So anyway, so we're the normal daycare stuff we're dealing with. But I mean, but the cost of it, right, are astronomical.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Infant-based or center-based infant daycare in the Boston area right now, something like almost $25,000, $26,000 a year on average, right? Yes. And that is a broken problem, because it means that people who are working, people who maybe don't have parents around the area, like we don't have that, it's a real expense, and that's driving people out of the region. It's making it harder for people who want to have kids to have more kids. I just think we could be doing a lot more at the federal level to try and solve that problem. It's not just giving more people money to get into daycare, although that can help at a certain level. It's expanding the supply of like affordable, quality daycare on the road to universal daycare and childcare options in this country for people. Other developed countries have figured out how to do that, and that's where we should be going.
Yeah, and in my experience, the cost of childcare and the difficulty accessing childcare disproportionately affects women who want to work and working moms. And curious what your thoughts are about that.
It's very important for me to raise this issue, partly because I'm not a woman. And I think often the costs and the burden of care disproportionately fall on female caregivers, and it excludes them often from opportunities in the workforce. Now, if you don't want to work, that's totally fine, right? We should support that too. But I think it's really important for a guy to be out there talking about this too, right? And not just have it be, oh, that's an issue for women to talk about, that's an issue for moms. Like, no, this is about parenthood, and it's fundamentally about equality. If it's the case that we just default to women stepping out of the workplace when and if they want to have a kid, that is going to have huge impacts across everyone's lives and how we conduct ourselves in this country. And I think being true to our values, being true to our founding principles and equality and decency and justice means that we do things to support people who want to have families and make sure they can get by.
Yeah. And I think the other cost to women often is not just being driven out of the workforce, which certainly happens, but also there being the primary sort of de facto parent that the daycare calls the mom, is like, okay, your kid's sick, you got to pick them up. And so just sort of that societal understanding of who's actually responsible for this child, and the pressure that comes along with that. I can say as a working mom that it feels like that's there's an expectation that I hold all of those responsibilities. And I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are about how we change those cultural norms, and what elected officials' role is in kind of changing those norms.
Yeah, great. Well, I feel like we should bring my wife into the vision. She would love to be part of this.
I would
You're
love
like,
to interview
yeah,
her.
you're like, oh, well, she's got things to say.
I
You know,
bet.
she's keeping me honest. She's keeping me honest about this. You know, like I drop her off at daycare earlier. I'm gonna get her in a couple hours, right? And so, you know, part of it is modeling that behavior, and part of it is just being honest about the disproportionate burden that falls on women by default, and trying to affirmatively do something in your own life about that. And as a policymaker, acknowledging this as an issue and trying to elevate it in the discourse, right? It's like the second thing out of my mouth after housing when I list through my policies, and trying to provide more support that's gender agnostic, right? That is not saying like we are going to support moms. It's like, no, we're going to support children and families and working parents.
Yep, absolutely. And my sense is sometimes people who have maybe are of older generations are used to the sort of stereotypical man out working and the wife at home sort of taking care of things. And in my experience, when that generation is making policy decisions, they tend to be making it from that lens and that perspective that, well, you know, why would you need affordable childcare? Why wouldn't the wife or the mom just stay home with the kids? And I think in my mind that really limits the possibilities of what our country could be. And I heard recently someone from the federal administration said something like our country's under-babied. And to me, that just really is such a good indication of how out of touch our elected officials are, and our federal administration is, of like regular people's lives. Like people are not having babies because it is incredibly difficult.
There's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that, and it's not just a personal reason of like, I want to be able to travel, which certainly is the case for some people. But it's very real that it's very difficult to buy a house. It's very difficult to pay for childcare. It's very difficult to have the time to like get your kid to childcare by 8, pick them up by 5, or else you pay $1 a minute if you're late. Right? And schools end at 2, and so once they're in school, you have to figure out after school. There's these systemic issues that make it difficult for families to have kids. And I think that having someone with that lived experience thinking about how we create systemic changes, in my mind, is critical.
It is healthy to have different perspectives step into these roles.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to have, and my perspective of kind of being a new parent and a slightly younger person, sure, that's great. But all sorts of different perspectives, right? People from different backgrounds, different walks of life who don't have certain degrees or have different sexual orientations or different class backgrounds. Like, that's good, and we need to promote more of that. And part of the problem I think this country's facing, and my Democratic Party's facing, is the sense that we've had just the same people in there for a long, long time. That is not per se a problem, but it limits the kinds of perspectives that you have. And so things like this, kind of fall away, and they don't get the attention that they need, and they don't have voices promoting the different perspectives of this rich, diverse, amazing country, right? And so I'm just, I guess like a lot of people, I think I'm just eager to see some fresh thinking and some urgency and some different perspectives in these seats. And maybe if you've been doing this job for 25 years, like the incumbent in this race, it's time to let someone else give it a try, right? I also think term limits might be a part of that, right? I think it might be a good, healthy forcing mechanism, because it gets easier and easier the longer you're there. You get entrenched, right? There's systems in place. The whole system's designed to make sure the people who are there get reelected. That's the kind of thing we need to just change. We need to fix it. It's not going to happen from the top. It's going to happen from people running and grassroots and people getting excited and putting themselves out there.
Yeah. So another issue I'm really curious about is reproductive rights. We've clearly seen those rights be wound back federally. Thankfully, we're in Massachusetts, and our state legislature and our governor have put protections in place. But curious on the federal level, kind of what your thoughts are about reproductive rights.
Yeah. an absolute priority for me personally, and as a policymaker and as hopefully the member of Congress from this district, is ensuring constitutional access to reproductive rights, that everyone in this country has the right to seek an abortion, women do not have barriers put in place for them to access reproductive rights. I think that Roe versus Wade was rightly decided. The Constitution does protect a certain amount of degree of freedom there, and what the Supreme Court has done in rolling that back, abetted by this extreme Republican Party, is extremely dangerous to this country. And to get back to our earlier conversation, is also a deliberate attempt to diminish the rights of women in this country and to make it harder for them to access care that they want to access. So it's a huge priority for me. I think we certainly need to reverse what the Supreme Court did by codifying that constitutional protection into law. And I think there's more we could do to do things like protect access to IVF treatment, right, which is also under the same attack if you follow the line of reasoning, right? And they're coming for that. Yeah. All sorts of treatments that are related to that are not just abortion care. So it's a healthcare issue. It's a freedom and equality issue for me. I think we just need a clear pro-choice advocate from this seat. I'm Catholic too, by the way. You can have a private view. You're very welcome to have that, right? It's just about not imposing that on others through law in a way that conflicts with constitutional freedoms and liberties. Look, we've got a member here now, Congressman Lynch, who was elected saying he was a staunch pro-life congressman. He was very clear about that. For decades, he voted that way here in the state legislature and then in the Congress, making sure that Planned Parenthood did not get that federal funding for decades. And more recently, he's clouded that view. I honestly don't know where he is right now. Yeah. I don't know. No one's asked him. I couldn't tell you. I just think we need someone who's clear on this issue and is a strong advocate.
Yeah, I agree. I think that again, we live in Massachusetts, and so I think some of us can feel a little like we're okay and we don't need to worry as much about that. But we do. We absolutely do. And one, because we are a full country and our neighbors and other states deserve the same protections that we have. And we are sending people to Congress to represent us. And if they are not representing our values and our beliefs, then that needs to change. Yeah. We need someone who's in there who's actually representing what we believe. So one of the arguments that I've heard about reproductive rights is that the states should be able to make their own decisions. And that's why the change was made with Roe versus Wade, is that that the states should be able to determine individually what they believe around reproductive rights. And I'm curious, from an attorney perspective, what's your take on that?
I think to a degree that's true. We do have states can do different things, and it's appropriate for states in one place to do one thing and another. Massachusetts do something different than Texas. But what Roe versus Wade had held, that there is a constitutional minimum, right? There is a certain degree of bodily autonomy and integrity that the United States Constitution protects, and there is a consensus, reasonable line that depends on the trimester, right? And after a certain point, states are more free, or before a certain point, states have more freedom in how they adapt the laws that have restrict access to reproductive rights and care. That was the regime that we had. It allowed for states to do a different thing down to a certain minimum, right? All it said was that there's a basic level of protection that everyone in this country is going to get. And that seems right to me, right? I mean, that is consistent with what due process and equal protection mean. It's consistent with our basic vision of bodily integrity and autonomy and freedom. And that is, I think, what we need to go back to. It doesn't mean that everything has to be exactly the same all over the country. You can allow for that. But there has to be a baseline, and that is not here right now. There are really scary things happening in red states like Texas and Georgia and Florida, people who are dying in the parking lot of abortion clinics and healthcare offices. That cannot happen. That we cannot live in a society that allows that.
Yeah. I mean, my heart breaks when I hear about women who are in their third trimester and find out that there's that the baby's not alive, or there's something that's going to make the baby, unfortunately the fetus die before it's born, and they're not able to make the decision with their physician and their family.
They're not able to access care.
Right. Like that decision should be made by that person and their body and their family and their faith provider and their medical provider. And in my mind, when I think about these people in Congress making that decision for that woman and that family, that feels completely antithetical to what our values are as a country and
Absolutely.
as a society.
It's infuriating.
Yeah. So what can we do? So there's possibility for change.
I think after this period this country is going through, after the Trump presidency, which will end, we are going to have a really exciting time, actually.
Can you just say again that it will end?
It will end.
Okay.
It will end.
Thank you.
We are going to have an opportunity to not just go back to the way things were before Trump, but to actually build something better, right? And and that's a healthy thing. That's an exciting thing. It's what I want to be part of. And God willing, we get a Democratic House of Representatives, maybe a Senate, and then hopefully in the future a president. We're going to have the opportunity to do things like rebuild the Department of Education,
Yes,
right?
yes.
For one, just take one example, or put that budget back together, right? And restore the insane cuts to Medicare and Medicaid that are going to come for our community hospitals, right? But we're going to get to do it better in a way that expands that and actually makes healthcare more accessible and more affordable to people. So I just feel tremendous optimism about because you see it, right? You see in more recent elections, you see in the polling, people are not excited about what this administration is doing on immigration, on the cost of basic goods, on taking away people's individual rights. That is not what people want. It's not what they signed up for. So I think it's coming. and look, I think we could do something about it right here in our congressional district, right? Where we've got a member of Congress who hasn't had an in-person town hall since 2019, who has never had a leadership position in the caucus, who is the only Democrat left in Washington who voted against the Affordable Care Act, the only member of our congressional delegation who voted for this Lake and Riley bill, the Republican immigration bill. I think the community of Quincy is a great example of how people who are organized and want to see a change can make that done. It's happened at the local level, and as you know, we're trying to do that town by town in this community and build a grassroots movement that is about reflecting where our communities are, where our aspirations are, and where the country could be.
So if I were to ask your wife, why do you think we should vote for Patrick? What do you think she would say?
She's someone who comes from an immigrant background, and English wasn't her first language, and got to Harvard University on a free ride because of her performance in school, right? And so she really lived an amazing American dream story that I'd love to see replicated all over, and really a more impressive story than mine.
So is there anything else that we haven't covered today that you feel is a priority that we should be focusing on and thinking about as we're making this decision to cast ballots?
It's a September 1st election, is the Democratic primary, both Republican and Democratic primary, and we'll have a real opportunity to see a different kind of leadership, I think, on this ballot. As you know, we've raised $1 million, we're on the ballot, we've been endorsed by former Governor Deval Patrick, I'm really proud of, David Hogg, the national leader, among a number of local elected officials, including many here in the city of Quincy. We had our town hall campaign kickoff last week and had 50 people in the rain at that event. So, we think there's something really growing. If people want to learn more, they can go to our website, patrickroath.com. Find us on Instagram or TikTok, Lord help you, or Blue Sky, and they can come sign up to volunteer. They can certainly just reach out to me directly. I really want to be as accessible as possible to people. I'll certainly be here for Flag Day. Can't miss Flag Day in Quincy.
Flag Day in Quincy.
Flag Day is a big one.
Day.
I'll be there.
Yes.
And we can talk all day about the issues, but I really hope that people will find an opportunity to come hear a little more from me and learn about the campaign.
Great. That's definitely one of our focuses for this podcast is civic engagement. And
Great.
So each episode I'm asking our guests, what can people do? What do you think are the best ways for people to get engaged civically? And so if someone were to get engaged with your campaign, what are some of the options of things that they could do?
Oh, great. Well, so much. I mean, we're just getting our big summer Get Out the Vote program off the ground. So, there's everything from you could grab a yard sign, put it up in your yard.
Yes.
You could post on social media, right? Tell your friends, just spreading the word in your community. If you want to knock on doors, we're going to be doing a ton of that. Very proud that just this week the Boston Teachers Union joined as an endorsing group. We've got some more help coming. So if you want to join a bunch of educators and knock on some doors, we can make that happen, which is really exciting. Calls, texts, all of that. We'll have a really fun office opening soon at our office in Dorchester. There's all sorts of ways for people to get involved, and we'd love to have them all. And If you don't want to get involved in my campaign, also fine. Do other great stuff in your community, right? There's all sorts of nonpartisan work that groups like Quincy Votes is up to. There's other great people running great races. And civic engagement can just be helping out at your local library or at your local food pantry, or reminding people that there's an election coming up and they should register. That's great work, right? I'd love to have their help, but people can do a lot of great stuff in Quincy without helping this campaign.
Anyone who's heard me talk about civic engagement or participating in campaigns, most people are going to say, I'll text some friends or I'll post on social media, but I really can't knock doors. And what I always tell people is it's actually the most effective.
Yes.
The most effective way to get someone you support to win is by knocking on doors.
And it can be fun.
It is super fun.
I think it's very fun.
I love it. And what I always tell people is you don't have to go alone, right? So if someone signs up to door knock for your campaign, you can pair them up.
Totally.
Right? And say, you're going to go with Zoe today. Zoe's been out on a ton of doors, and Zoe will take the lead initially and sort of do the script and make sure you're on point with your tracking of what you're doing. And anyone I've ever gone with door knocking, halfway through our turf, they say, I've got it. Let me take this side of the road and you take this side, right? Because you realize
you get good fast,
it's literally going like this and saying,
Yeah.
hi, my name is Liz.
Yeah.
I'm here to talk about Patrick Roath running for Congress. And it's super easy. Most people are very friendly.
Yeah.
And happy to chat, or they're like, no, I'm good. And you're okay, no problem, right?
And as the weather's getting nice, you get your steps in.
Yeah, exactly. So I know there's lots of ways to get involved in campaigns, and phone banking is good, and texting is good, and letters to the Quincy Sun are good. Yep. The best, if you're competitive and you want to do the best, is door knocking.
I'm glad you put the pitch in. That is the best. We'll take it.
So I encourage people to take that leap and take that risk. Sign up to door knock. And again, hopefully for Patrick, but perhaps there's lots of other candidates you'll probably hear from on this podcast. And do the door knocking. Give it a try. It also creates a sense of community where you get to know your neighbors in a different way. And maybe it's not your neighborhood, but it's a different neighborhood that you never would have explored before. I've learned so much about Quincy from knocking on doors. Yeah. And so it's a great way to get comfortable with doing that civic engagement. And then the rest of it becomes very easy.
Yep.
Just let's do another quick reminder about September 1st. Because I think people often think November for the election. Do you want to explain quickly why September 1st?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, the Democratic primary is September 1st, and this district usually elects a Democrat, so that's really the dispositive election. So you can vote in it as long as you're registered by 2 weeks in advance, and you're either a Democrat or if you're unenrolled. If you're unenrolled, you can also vote in the Democratic primary. You got to pick one, Democrat or Republican, and you should pick the Democrat. Vote for me.
Yes.
So that's that. Of course, you can do it at your local polling location, but the mail-in ballot applications will also go out in the mail, maybe early August. Look, it's unfortunate in this state. We have our elections over it's the Tuesday before Labor Day, so it's kind of in the middle of everyone's vacation in August. But please keep it in mind. Send a ballot in. That's easy, nice and easy, and would really be honored to have people's vote on that election.
Yeah, we're going to be pushing that hard here because the ballot questions will be on the November ballot, which we'll talk more about. But most of the big candidate elections will be decided on September 1st.
Yep.
And it is the end of the summer when people are off on vacation. And so as it's only May, but as soon as we can get people thinking in their head September 1st, early voting in August, then they can make sure they get that ballot in.
Yep. Great.
So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad you're doing this. This is great.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time.